Thank you for coming. Ready to take the roll?
Broad,
Here.
Palazzo,
Here.
DeBalzer,
Here.
Frick, Lancaster,
Here.
Knoll, Sarniso, Smith. 7 present, 1 absent.
One change in the agenda, at least one, we'd like to move the executive session to the end of the meeting, unless there's some objection. Because we're not voting on it after that, we're the whole votes here in the meeting. Okay. Any other changes, additions to the agenda? Okay. Moving on to the approval of March 5th, 2024 council minutes. Say something. No. Okay, so I guess officially, we'll give Kelly credit for the motion and Sammy the second. Okay, is there any discussion of the minutes? All in favor of approval, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Say nay. Okay. Also, within the package, February 2024 financial report. We have a motion to approve the financial. Second. Yes, right. Yeah, I will give Peter the credit for the push. Second. Okay. Is there any discussion on the financial report? Well, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? To the portion of public comment. If there was anyone that walked in that wasn't aware that they needed to sign up and wanted to sign up, they can just kind of go at the end. But if no one else, other than the 2 people that have signed up, want to speak, Bart, apologize, I'm going to butcher your last name, so you get to go first. How do you say it? Hey, sorry, thank you. The name and address for the record. Please say that, and then please.
Just push this button.
Enter.
I'm Barb Hay. I'm a White Township resident, and I am a landscape architect. And I am here to offer a little bit of public comment for the new landscape plan for Vinegar Hill. I think it looks great. I love the mosaic that the colors provide of the design. I'm concerned about the maintenance of the fragrant sumac that's at the extent of the design, because those are the steepest parts of the hillside, and according to the maintenance records, that will have to be trimmed in a frequent way. So I'm concerned about that, and maybe considering rethinking of some of those, especially on steeper slopes. So it could be something that doesn't require that much maintenance. Another concern that I have is the amount of junipers that are being used. Junipers sometimes are prone to tip blight. So I'm just concerned that that's a consideration and that will be thought through as well. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Can you explain that juniper concern you have? Right.
I wrote that question down for that. Told you, theory works.
I'm excited about it. It's great.
Up next is Trina. Our next proposal, thank you for coming.
All right, I'm Trina Flam. I am from 481 Byers Road, Indiana, PA. And once again, I'm just the messenger, just bringing you some history tonight. And it's actually about the solar eclipse. Wanted to pass on that God uses the sun to get our attention. Most total solar eclipses happen over the water, but there has been several over the United States. And also, our government and our government guidelines were formed by people that believed in God and His Word. In 1778 or 1776, when the Columbus came across, or when the world was formed, or however you want to put that, that was when one solar eclipse happened over the United States. Our most recent ones was 2017, and there was a solar eclipse that lasted an hour and 33 minutes. Some people refer to the book of Psalms, and they said in Psalms 133, it calls for unity. The solar eclipse was 130-mile wide radius, so it had quite a vision where you could see it. It crossed 7 cities of Salem. Salem means peace. And the solar eclipse in 2017 came into the United States at Salem, Oregon. And it exited at Fort Sumter, South Carolina, where the Civil War began. And total eclipses, at best, occur only on a narrow track on the surface of the Earth. So it was kind of rare that we get to see these solar eclipses over the United States. In this eclipse this year, they're calling for it to enter. Well, first of all, it's been 7 years since the last solar eclipse, which, of course, 7, there's significance to the number 7 in the Bible as well. So since it's been 7 years, and it is to enter it's supposed to enter the United States at Eagle Pass, Texas, where there's been talk of a civil war. It will cross 7 cities, all named Nineveh. Nineveh in the Bible was a sign of warning, and it was also asking for repentance. The next interesting thing is that the eclipse crosses on the United States. Where the two cross, they will cross over a town called New Egypt, over Cedar Park, which has a street named Salem, that it will also cross over. And these are facts that have happened beyond any human control. And if indeed it is the Lord trying to tell us to repent from wicked ways, I would suggest that you here stand up for what's right and decent for our young people to see in your decision for the events that are going to take place in our public arena of downtown Indiana. That is my suggestion. And I pray for your comfort, your consolation, for your health and healing, for renewed faith and purpose for our leaders, for our world, for unity. May we every day, even on the most difficult days, demonstrate His love and share His grace. God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There was not anyone else signed up for public comment. And so, we move the executive session, so we're on to committee review. Administration Committee, which deals with finances and personnel. You can see in the minutes that we just approved that mental report, and let's do a parking update. Parking is improving. It's not making a bundle of money for us yet, but it's not moving for us. We have problems with the meters. It wasn't now. Oh, okay. Meters that are not working, sent back to the factory for repair. We've reviewed the ARP budget, talked about an HR consultant, which
I guess. And we talked about the Emergency Services Authority, which you may, if you've been reading the paper, been seeing that other of the entities that are supposed to be chipping in on this are also considering the city tabled it, White Township considered it. But we have one action item which did not go through the committee, so it needs a second. This is in order to allow our administrative manager to work with Merkheimer, lucky her, on receiving our taxes. So you've got the whole resolution there, and there's a motion to approve that tax confidentiality resolution, and it needs a second. Is there any discussion?
Just for clarity, this is the thing that we'd have to do every year, right?
No,
Every year?
it's because we're changing. It went from me to Lori.
Oh, thank you, yes. That's specifically the reason for this.
Anything else?
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carried. Just for clarity, we didn't spend money, did we? Okay. Okay, no roll call on this.
It's the coupons.
That's what I have.
I have a question. The Emergency Services Authority that you spoke of, how it was passed in the committee itself. Are you going to bring that up on new business or?
Oh, you did pass it.
Yeah.
It wasn't here as an action item, even though we did.
Talk about it.
We just talked about
Yeah.
it. I think he's right. We did. I'm looking for it. We made, move forward, we kind of do, we made the participating in the authority. All right, so look into.
Gather information.
Participating with the authority. This is not, this is short of a vote for the borough of Indiana to participate in the authority. This vote from the committee look into participating.
Moving forward.
I think the general sense was, and we're glad that the press reported that way, was that we think it's a good idea. So we're not going alone.
So for the sake of clarity, as a question to end, then what would the next step be? Looking into it is a little ambiguous.
No, yeah, we just needed to let the county know that we're on board for them to move forward with giving us that information. Yes.
And so wasn't it my understanding, all municipalities that are interested to tell them, hey, we're interested. And then the county's going to figure out, okay, here's the number for Indiana Borough, here's the number for Homer City, here's the number for Blairsville. So, does that sound accurate?
Well, it's close. There are 38 municipalities that can participate. And actually, the idea is to have the same amount each household. So there's 44,000 households. So to know who all is on board, would give them the opportunity to say, okay, now that we know how many people or how many municipalities are involved, this is how much we would have as a fee going to each household. And so this is the first phase of it, because the whole idea of is for future funding. Because if you look not only at our citizens ambulance, but ambulance services throughout Pennsylvania, they're going better because they just don't get the proper funding that's needed. And I want to give you an example. Last month, citizens responded to 90 calls and gave services to 90 different calls and got nothing. Not a cent. And each call cost them about $9. So when you have somebody that overdoses, they go in, they get Narcan and that, and then they refuse transport. Okay.
So, just for the sake of clarity, is this a thing we should add to old business and talk more tonight, or are we in a holding pattern until they tell us more?
I don't know if we're ready.
Right.
So we know which one to go.
Ordinance eventually, if it.
That's
Yeah.
the thing. Steering committee, I guess it is. Steering committee to say, okay, they have X number of households. And then we'll know what our obligation is from our households in the book. Then you can make a decision as to whether or not you want to pass the ordinance to join the authority. That would be the next step.
We
Did we talk about this at
Yeah.
the list?
It was a work session. They never had a work session.
I didn't want to be difficult, but I'm sure we already voted to move forward. We've got nothing to do to let the county know. Well, no, we're not announcing it
We're
now.
announcing that we're getting.
We already did it. We did it at the work session. Yeah. We did that at a work session and told that, I'm assuming you already notified the county that we're in. So this step. Absolutely.
Aside from, it's very important.
It is.
Make this out. And I have to tell you that it really is complicated going forward. There's so many moving parts and so many different ideas. There are 8 districts within this group. We are district number 8, which consists of Indiana Borough, White Township, and so we collectively work together in the district. If you take note that that probably represents about half of the population of Becker County. So you see how important it is that we are part of it, because if Indiana Borough and White Township would say, no, we don't do it, go. Let's go.
But the borough still might well have to provide that service.
Everybody has to.
Right.
Every municipality would have to provide that.
So we, good quality service. We have.
Right. We want to lose what we have.
Well, I guess that was a question for Adam. So any other questions? Okay. Community development. I believe we were all there for community development. The only real flashing light important thing that's happened. Plan is moving ahead and approaching its. I believe it's officially starting. No one else was there with me. Okay, I think it's officially starting. There may or may not be meeting. I apologize. It's a little fuzzy. But we're very close to starting the approval phase. That's what I'm getting at. It's going to be going to planning commission. It's going to be going, there's, I think, one more public outreach, at least one more. I shouldn't say only one more. And then it's going to be working its way through that final approval. Oh, I'm sorry, not, I apologize.
Planning.
What I meant to say was there's one more steering committee meeting, I believe, to iron out any last details. Maybe. That was an official maybe. I'm butchering this, so I'm going to continue. I'm going to try to push through. Forgive me. Long story short, we're getting close to the end. That's what I was just saying. I'll end with that. Okay. I don't know. I just genuinely don't know if there's going to be that meeting. There was talk of one, and then Jeff was giving a hard time because he said there wasn't going to be any more. So we never got that one. Time will tell. It'd be at the end of the month if it wasn't, if we hadn't. That's the major thing that changed, other than it's already in the notes from community development. We have a question, I'm just double checking, we don't have any action items, and we don't. So, any questions for community development? Okay, well, that concludes my very short delivery of what I tried to say. I apologize. Moving on to public safety.
Yeah,
Hopefully it does better.
everybody is here, for the March 12th, public safety meeting. But I do want to mention something for the press, that one of the things we had as an update was that the grant we got for countywide radio project, to get everybody, every police force in the county on the same, with the same radio system and wavelength so they can communicate with each other. That we were told in the meeting that within 60 days, that will be finalized. So that if Blairsville has a major problem and they need some help from Indiana, Homer City has a problem, they need help, they can contact other police forces without going through an intermediary. Because before, they would have had to call 911 and go through that, not being able to. The system was set up, Chief Shaw was behind it, to having the work done to apply for the grant to get these, so that now our police forces in our county can talk. And that will be finalized in less than 60 days. That's a big accomplishment. They got a grant not only because we are the largest police force, but they got the grant to include all the other police departments. And that's a good thing that we did here in the borough. We do have one action item. It was passed in public safety. Motion to approve, so it doesn't need a second. Motion to approve Audience of One concert sponsored by the Waymakers on Friday, April 19th from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. in Hiram Park. I will point out this is the second year that this is being done. They did it, and we have to vote on the first 3 years. After that, they can just go through the police department and not have to come to us. So it was done last year. It had a big crowd last year, and it was a good event to have in town.
They did it twice last.
Well, yeah, once in the spring, once in the fall. So we need a vote on that.
It does not need a second.
Doesn't need a second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried.
Okay,
Good.
that's it.
We-
I know.
Okay, thank you. Casey is not here. And so I guess the real question would be, is there any major changes that wouldn't have been in the Public Works minutes? Nicole, Casey is not here to tell us if there's anything that isn't just simply in the minutes that we can review. Something you want to add, you can put it here for example.
Yeah, I mean, other than we talked about the boroughs, the update, but I can say that, and then obviously the big presentation for Senator Hill, so.
Commission reports. You have anything to share, planning?
No. Moving ahead. The comp plan, of the zoning thing, but it's all, I can say it's moving forward.
Okay. Questions for planning? Okay. Did that. Okay. In which case, we then went to shade tree.
All right, so I did attend our shade tree meeting. A lot of informed people, a lot of experienced people. So I'd like to turn the microphone to Ryan because he will be more qualified and capable of explaining, updating.
Okay, so for Shade Tree, our Arbor Day celebration on April 26th, we'll be planting a tree in front of the Indiana County Chamber of Commerce building. That'll be taking place at noon on the 26th. The Arbor Day on April 26th.
Oh, Chamber of Commerce, no.
Yes. Yeah. Soon to be old, yes. Another thing I might want to mention too is a tree that we have located on Water Street. Bob Crusan studies have found that it is the oldest tree in Indiana Borough, and there might be some conflicts with the tree with some safety issues and a sore lateral, and the tree might have to come down. But nothing's been finalized yet. There's been a lot of investigation going into it, so I definitely wanted to bring that to your attention, so.
Do you have an estimated age?
He does, but I don't know it. Part of the discussion, so
Yeah.
to try to keep it, so.
Bob Krzan, he's just so full of knowledge, he's got a bunch of trees that they're working on, they got a lot of phone calls coming and going. I don't know, there's just so much information, but they're doing good, they're on the ball.
I do have a question for shade tree. It was 27 tree grants. What does it bring the total? I thought we were getting 27 for this year.
22, I purchased 22. 22 for this year. Yes.
What does it bring the total to though, once they're in?
Well, there's 133 total.
Once you put these, how many would be in, I guess?
Being, so 22,
I can't remember.
yeah, so it'll be 32.
Okay. And based on where you guys prioritize the
Mhm.
contract area, too. I didn't know. I'm good.
I would say that's nice.
Thank you.
Any other questions for? Okay. We're on to the borough managers.
Okay, obviously the borough renovation is what's been happening in our lives the last 2 weeks. We're officially moved over. Again, I think I've praised everybody at the Public Works. Everybody's done a wonderful job coming together, moving. Obviously everything just doesn't happen as smooth as one would hope. A little hiccup with, phone and internet, but we are officially up and running. Everything's good. Everybody's in place over there. Things are working out. And, we have, a pre-construction meeting coming up on the 12th. They started some tearing upstairs in the administration part of it. So we'll get what we need to get done down here. The police will relocate down here and then they'll. If anybody hasn't saw Senator Pittman's post, good news is from a grant we applied for last year, so kudos to Kyle who's not here anymore. We received multi transportation grant, and that was for 5 bridges for over the Marsh Run area in an amount of $500,000. So good news. And there'll probably be more to come on this. I'm going to be working with the county on something, so more information to come involving this grant. But that will cover 5 bridges in the areas again that runs down Marsh Run. So 500,000 and will be put to good use. So we appreciate that grant. Right, a bit. Well, yeah. The bridges and and the surrounding areas around the bridges, so that helps with the stream banks and stuff like that. On top of the 2 other grants that we just received, also when it comes to the stabilization of Marsh Run, so we're really working in that area, so hopefully that will solve a lot of the problems in that area. I have an update, but I'll wait till we'll get to that solar update. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but other than that, that's all I have right now.
Okay, any questions for the borough man? Chief, you're up next.
Mr. President, Borough Senators, thank you. In my report today, I'd like to give you a recap of our IPAD's police activity. I provided this in memo form to the mayor, and I'll have the memo for you at the public safety. I'd like to discuss it today. So During the period of Friday at 7 a.m. to Sunday at 7 p.m., your police department answered 156 calls for service, which represented an average of 52 calls a day. For some reference, during that same period in 2023, we experienced 164 calls for service, so very similar to last year. We filed 23 total charges during the weekend. We've since filed a few more. We investigated one reportable crash, an incident of domestic violence, and a protection from abuse order violation over the weekend. Code enforcement, parking department, and public works were active before, during, and after the event, with the code department issuing 5 citations for rubbish during the time that they worked. The parking department issued 115 parking citations for the period that they worked. Public works set up prior to the event no parking and parking restrictions in areas of town where our residents are sensitive to visitor parking. And they were more than available over the weekend, although we had no call outs for public works. We were assisted throughout the weekend by the IUP Police Department, the Pennsylvania State Police, in addition to Indiana County Emergency Management, Indiana County District Attorney's Office, Indiana County Sheriff's Department, Indiana Regional Medical Center. These resources presented themselves in the following manner over the weekend: equipment, funding for specific enforcement details, investigative efforts, assistance with in-custody holding and transportation, medical assessments for the intoxicated and injured. We also had community support, and we were assisted Friday through Sunday by IUP's Public Information Officer, Michelle Freiling, in relaying information to all media partners as one voice for the weekend law enforcement. Additionally, members of Summit Church provided warm meals and fellowship for all first responders both Friday and Saturday night, which is always very much appreciated. The cost of the weekend, this is outside of scheduled shifts. The operational cost for the police department over the weekend was $209.50. That was unanticipated cost. That is excellent from years past. And that can only be realized because of the assistance that we received from site agencies, the fact that we get scheduled well in advance. And so let's go into that number. But there's always that unknown element where we may need more resources. And so that number is indicative of some additional overtime that wasn't planned. But again, we're very low. And in summation, and I'd like to just read this to you directly. I've given this verbatim to our partner in the press. I'm always proud to represent Indiana Borough's public safety effort. The men and women of your police department, as well as the women and men of your public works, parking, code, and administrative departments, perform admirably on behalf of our community during special events and weekends of increased activity. Not only were employees active and engaged throughout the weekend, weeks of advanced planning and proactive relationship building were required by all departments to prepare for such a large-scale community safety response that is required to mitigate known and anticipated dangers of the weekend. IBPD and administration's advanced planning included coordinating with partner agencies, attending executive and stakeholder meetings of IAC, communicating with business partners, student residents, and meetings with IUP Greek leaders. Operational deployment and response of your police department followed a detailed plan created and implemented by Lieutenant Eric Slavinsky and executed by Sergeants Michael Raglani, Zach Stifler, and Michael Rako, and performed admirably by the men and women of IBPD's patrol and criminal investigation units. As in past years, an influx of vehicle and pedestrian traffic was experienced starting Friday afternoon at approximately 3 p.m. Large outdoor gatherings were experienced at campus-adjacent locations, with smaller gatherings being dispersed throughout town. The area of most daytime activity on Friday was in the area of Rice Avenue, South 7th Street, and Wayne Avenue. Nighttime activity on Friday was shared between campus-adjacent locations in Philadelphia Street Bar District. Similarly, daytime activity on Saturday was most predominant in the Rice Avenue, South 7th Street, and Wayne Avenue corridors. Nighttime activity was predominantly within our Philadelphia Street Bar District. The largest outdoor gatherings on Saturday afternoon occurred in private parking lots associated with IUP Greek Life along Rice Avenue. Although large, gatherings appeared well managed by the associated fraternities, and it was apparent to us that members of these fraternities had a vested interest in guest safety and police safety objectives. There was an atmosphere of cooperation, support, and respect between hosts, guests, and police that is worthy of being emulated in following years. Gatherings along Rice Avenue corridor concluded and dispersed during daylight hours and without police intervention, which increased everyone's safety and well-being. The student-to-student engagement was effective in keeping roadways open and guests informed of what would and would not be tolerated. Their self-policing lessened the need, intensity, and duration of police-citizen contact. Overall, the professional and effective handling of all circumstances was achieved by the advanced and coordinated planning, frontline leadership, and great individual and collective efforts. Organizationally, we could not have been as effective or efficient without emergency management, Indiana County District Attorney's Office, Indiana County Sheriff's Department, IUP Police, Pennsylvania State Police, and the support and respect of the community we serve. As in past years, Summit Church of Indiana demonstrated care for all first responders through the weekend by providing warm meals and fellowship opportunities. Finally, I thank our student residents for the support and respect shown to us over the weekend, and our permanent residents for their continued support and respect of our ongoing mission. As I've said many times, we are always safer and better together, and it remains a great honor to serve as your chief of police. So, again, that verbatim, I'm sorry, I should have, perhaps since I read that, had copies for everyone. You will have copies April 9th of this verbatim as I read it for your records. And just in continuing, I did issue a recognition to Police Department and our Administrative Assistant, Donna Pellis, for weekend activity. I'd like to bring that to through my report. There's a recognition of performance, IU Patty's weekend for jobs well done. This memo serves as recognition of performance and notes of jobs well done for collective efforts during weekend events commonly referred to as IU Patty Weekend. Members of IBPD are credited with participating in community meetings, stakeholder coordination, and conversations with first responding partners to form the best possible operational plan to assure peace, safety, and comfort of our residents and visitors. In preparation for the weekend, members restructured their home and work schedules, monitored social media conversations, communicated directly with our student residents on safety matters, procured needed resources, and finalized plans for a coordinated public safety response. During the weekend, officers engaged in 156 police activities, including the investigations of DUI and drug activity, the recovery of an illegally possessed firearm, multiple incidents of drunkenness and noise, and the monitoring of large gatherings, and assuring the general welfare of all within Indiana Borough. Following the weekend, members were diligent in completing professional reports, charging documents, and conducted timely and necessary follow-up investigations. Bringing closure to the weekend, Administrative Assistant Donna Pellis worked diligently to accumulate, organize, and disperse court documents and necessary internal documents to accurately capture weekend activity for reporting purposes. In all, every member of IBPD is recognized for demonstrating professionalism before, during, and after a weekend of increased public safety need. And I finished by saying your collective and individual skills were on display, again proving the value of a professional, highly trained, and compassionate police department to the residents of Indiana Borough. Jobs well done. Two more thank you notes were received in continuing with the recognition. One thank you note, the Indiana Borough Police Department was given to, by the Armstrong Indiana Clarion Drug and Alcohol Commission. And this thank you note is for PFC Michael Clausen and Scout participating in an event, and there was the police department donated a gift card to the event that was raffled off to some students attending. So that was a thank you note. And then the second thank you note was issued to the police department from the Indiana County Roman Catholic parishes. We assisted with the traffic control detail for a month of March event. Mr. President, the only other thing I'd like to report, it's already been well reported in the press, is that our canine accident, through the good work of Sergeant Jeff Hogue, received a grant for his health care. So if there's an on-duty injury or accident that happens, a very nice donation was taken for that. We have no cost to the Borough or the police department, which is fantastic. We're one of 20 in the United States. That was 100% due to the great work of Sergeant Jeff Hogue. It's better captured in the press and on the radio, so I don't have to talk to you. Other than that, that concludes my report.
Personally, I'm very much always love hearing about how people recognize the police department for things that they do, the thank you notes and what have you. I personally always love hearing that because I don't think police gets enough recognition. I don't necessarily specifically mean our community. I mean that as a countrywide, you often hear about the negative, you rarely, unfortunately, hear about. So I enjoy hearing that. Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief?
So, I have a 17-year-old graduating, and she's gonna go to St. Vincent's for criminology. She doesn't know what she wants to do. But she was welcome to do a 2-hour ride during IUP weekends. And she said, if I can reiterate some of these, she was so excited and proud, and even more interested and excited and learning more. She would like to work more with the PD, or her police department. She said that she saw friendly and professional to the community, even though some of the behavior was immature and irresponsible by the students. And then she said that it was nice to witness the young adults and their behavior and the way they interacted with our police department. She also, let's see, she said she can't wait to do it again. I personally, after I think I was working, I think I worked a little bit. I stopped by again at the Mac Park, the Summit group. They are amazing. They are so friendly. They are so full of volunteers supporting all of our groups. So it was just really nice to witness. So if you don't get out and go visit next year, it's pretty good. So thank you very much for welcoming me.
Chief? Okay. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Solicitor?
I have no reports. Nothing great. Oh, yeah, I do have that. For clarity, we did not actually hold a work session 2 weeks ago. That was the EMS was discussed at the administrative meeting. So. I came to the administrative meeting, that's why I was confused. We're still getting used to work session and all the different, the way we work. So I apologize for misstating and saying that it was a work session when it was the administrative committee meeting. But it was decided at that meeting to let the county know to move forward. That's all I have.
Any questions for the solicitor? Okay. If you represent.
So earlier this evening, the KPAC, we hosted another long-range facility master plan update for the community. I've also shared the executive summary with you that kind of gives you a what's to come. And we just recently, 2 weeks, received notice that we did receive $150,000 from U.S. Representative Guy Reschenthaler and Senator Fetterman, and that was part of the FY24 allocation. So that's exciting news, and that's going towards, of course, our initiative for proposed fall costs with Catholic medicine. Last week, the Pennsylvania Auditor General, Timothy DeFore, was on campus. He was highlighting his program. It's an intern to hire initiative, which is really great. There's been 2 students that have gone through that. The first was from Westchester, and we have a recent IUP graduate that is now an employee of the Auditor General's office. So it was nice to have him there. Senator Pittman also joined us, as well as the Vice Chair of the Board of Governors, and he is also the Chair of the IUP Council of Trustees, Sam Smith. All were present for that. Some other updates for you. Notice that the IUP Footlight Players Summer Youth Theater Program is set to run from June 17th through July 13th, and the link is there if you'd like to share that with anybody that you know of that might want to participate. It's a great program. Coming up next weekend, we'll be hosting our annual celebration weekend, so you'll see an influx of traffic throughout town. We'll have the Alumni Association Board of Directors on campus. We'll be recognizing many of our volunteer leaders, as well as our incoming class of distinguished alumni. And the 3rd annual IUP Legislative Advocacy Luncheon is scheduled for Thursday, April 25th. You should have received an invitation for that. We'll be sending more information out again. I encourage you all to come. It will cover a lot of different topics, areas that we are asking you to contact our legislators on our behalf and help to push our efforts and our initiatives forward with them. In May, Council of Trustees will meet on the 9th. We also have our recognition of our Faculty Achievement Awards. We're also giving out a President's Medal of Distinction to one of my favorite people, Jack Frank. Dr. Frank is an alum, but a very proud and dedicated supporter of IUP. And then spring commencement is set for Friday, May 10th and Saturday, May 11th, where we will also be giving an honorary degree of public service to Mrs. Ellen Reddick, another great and very dedicated alumna of IUP. And that concludes my report.
I wanted to mention, I was not able to go to the KCAC, but as a result, I went to this morning's meeting in Luton. And following up on a question from Ben Ford, formerly of the company. We're still concerned that the Smith Group here in Tacoma are not doing anything visible to improve connections between the campus and the town. It's been promised for as long as I'm aware, which is a very long time. And nothing's been done. We could be putting signs up that promise that would show people how to get downtown. So.
Towards spring, extension.
It's back.
Okay.
And I suggested that they should be meeting with our planning commission, perhaps our community development.
I believe at one of the public sessions, which was in the fall, we had some individuals from the planning commission that were in attendance of one of those, and they exchanged information with the Smith Group. But I don't know if any meetings then happened between the two entities, but I can follow up on that.
So.
Nothing. Okay.
I know, I don't, he had a meeting scheduled, right,
And I pointed out that Jeff Riggs is not on the planning commission or any other. He's hired as a consultant by the borough, but he just is not on the staff of the borough.
I think that's an unfair point, but he is also spearheading the direction. Okay, so you can't meet and talk and exchange ideas.
Glad he does it, but we need to be involved. Because this body is the only body that can make decisions.
So Peter, I'll follow up on that.
Any questions? Okay, moving on to yours truly. I'd like to start by, I really want to thank, officially as my position as president for the IAC committee, all of the stakeholders, all the first responders who worked very diligently for a very long time to help, not just for St. Patrick's Day celebrations, but for, other large gatherings. The reason this was formed, the IAC was formed, was because some things went very, very poorly around some of these gatherings. And 10 years ago, I believe it was formed. And to hear a wonderfully vanilla report from the weekend from the police department, to me, is a testament to the hard work of a lot of people, including the students. I do think the students, I think Chief, you mentioned a lot of self-policing. They don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to get fined. They don't want, the gatherings broken up. So they're doing a great job as well, trying to do what they should be doing, having fun responsibly, which is hard to do sometimes. So we're glad they're doing it. There's one other thing that took place that I thought very, very long and hard about not saying something about, but I'm going to. There was a protest that took place. I forget the date, but it was Sunday of that weekend. I do not think it had anything to do with campus, though. So I don't want it to be lumped in, as some things sometimes do. And I want to speak, I'm using my personal opinion, but I do get a voice sitting here. I'm not speaking formally for council, but I do think that it's very, very important to remember that folks have a right to assemble in private places. But I also think it's important that, well, there isn't the theater has a private entity. Theater.
Yes, but people can.
And, yes, it is a fair point. So, I move on. Yes, private and public, and that is what I'm alluding to, that the same protections that allow people to assemble, allow people to speak their mind. And I do think that it's very important to understand and recognize that we can individually, again, not speaking for council, individually not approve of what someone may be speaking, but still recognizing and approving of the right to speak it. And I think that's the thing that revolved around various topics. And so I think the police department, I don't want to speak too much about what they did. I thought they were there to keep peace, and kind of leave it at that. And the chief report on it as he has time to do that. But I wanted to simply just say that it's important to remember that even though what someone is saying you may not agree with, I think, at least myself, very much support the right that people have to speak it. And I guess I will leave it at that, and I will move on. That is what I had to say. Thank you very much for listening. We'll go to the mayor.
Yes, getting back to the authority for the ambulance service. I'm on the steering committee, so I'm really deep into this. So obviously, I'm going to keep everybody here up to date on what's actually going on, because there's a lot of scuttlebutt throughout the county, and a lot of it is not. So I want to make sure that you understand. I told you about District 8 being Indiana Borough, White Township, and IUP. Chief and I are on the citizens board, and we are going to go meet with IUP tomorrow morning and talk about what we think they need to do as far as hanging with us as we get this thing started. And they're the third piece of our district, so I just want to let you know we'll be meeting that. That's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for the mayor? Thank you very much. Right. Moving on to old business. Nicole, did you?
It's just a quick update, because we're actually meeting with PennVest tomorrow. The council already approved the contract with EIS to move forward with then the.
Missed one word you said.
No, we're meeting with PennVest tomorrow. We talked last month to move forward with the solar with the developer EIS. We had some concerned with the PennVest loan, but after our first initial meeting with them, I'm not as concerned. So we did the initial paperwork with them. We're following up with another meeting tomorrow. So this agreement here is just more for an in-house contract. You guys already approved to move forward with the development. It's just leave it up to, I'll find the funding hopefully with PennVest. So I'll give more information next month after the meeting tomorrow, but it looks positive. So we should have some news by next month, or at least an update. Jonathan's been involved in one of the two meetings, with the first initial, but it's moving forward. It's moving forward, and we'll have more information.
Wasn't exactly what we thought it was going to be before the beginning. So, sounds like you guys have done.
But we are.
Okay. Anything else under old business?
This is what we are doing moving forward, your solution contract. Has it been signed?
It has not been signed. This is just the agreement that they're signing at the table, the legal stuff. And then again, this in here is all based on it. So they know that they're part of it.
So before we enter into contract, that's the conversation process.
No, you approved to move forward with EIS. We'll do the contract if you, but mostly the contract is approved.
for the sake of clarity, it was read multiple times. Because there was questions to be answered and details to be answered.
For Pet Fest, yes, yeah, based on the Pet Fest. And that's what we're getting, that's what we'll have more information.
Before we sign a
We're not,
contract,
they meant that,
we're not entering into this.
not yet.
And before we enter into this contract, that's how we. Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank
yeah.
Okay, moving on to new business. We did, there's one, I'm gonna let Mary go first, but
I'm patiently waiting, I'm like, oh, this is quick.
and, on events, why, we'll talk about that after Vinegar Hill. So, and forgot to bring that up at the beginning, when I didn't notice it until halfway through. So. Ron, are you spearheading, or these folks look like they're here to talk about it?
Nope. They're taking charge.
Okay.
I'm Keely. Yep.
So we were approached late last summer, by Ryan, asking if we would come out and take a look at Vinegar Hill, to see if we could develop recommendations for replanting the hill to achieve those goals, which was to reduce the maintenance on the hillside, and to have some attractive feature at the end of the street. So, with that, I have to tell you, this is not an easy project. There's a lot of different aspects here. You have soil, you have slope, you have topography, sunlight, shade, water, and all of those issues to deal with. And so, as landscape architects, we reach out and we've vetted a lot, all of the ideas that we've come up with today, and have come up with a solution that really is going to present. It unfortunately can't happen overnight. You also have had and still have weeds and seeds there that need to be addressed, if you want to give the landscape the best chance of success moving forward. So, with that, we've developed a landscape plan, planting plan, but more importantly, we've developed recommendations to get from where to the plants are planted on, a very detailed maintenance regimen, for Ryan to follow. Reduce maintenance, less maintenance than it had been in the past. That said, there's no such thing as a maintenance-free landscape planting. So we'll require, maintenance. There'll be more maintenance early on, and then as the plants become established and grow, the maintenance will be reduced moving forward. So, back to you if you want to.
Yeah.
Review.
So you also have copies of these in the little handouts. But we did soil tests on the hillside back in January, I believe. So we took 5 tests from each side, so 10 tests total, to determine the quality of the soil. Of course, the topography is a bit challenging there. So one of our biggest factors going forward was thinking about what's going to establish well, what's going to hold the slope, and what's going to require less maintenance so that people aren't precariously having to be on the slope taking care of these plantings. So we have come up with a plan with 4 different varieties of shrubs. We focused kind of the more intricate design around the stairs, and then it's kind of more simplified as you go out from the stairs. So around the stairs towards the top, we have a variety of juniper called gray owl that'll offer evergreen, color. It's more of like a blue-gray color, so it gives you a little bit different than a green. And it grows about 2 to 3 feet high, spreads, really good at establishing on slopes and stabilizing soils. Below that, you see this kind of red in here. That is a type of diarvilla. It's called firefly. So it has a kind of reddish tone leaf to it, so it'll be like this during the growing season. It has yellow flowers that come out in the springtime, which is why it's called firefly. And then it has lovely red-orange fall color. It is deciduous, so it'll lose its leaves in the fall. One thing that we discussed potentially for maintenance of this one would be every 2 or 3 years, maybe cutting that back just to help keep it a little bit tidy. The junipers really won't need pruning, by the way, except if they start growing a little too aggressively over the wall and you want to prune that. So down here on the very bottom, running kind of the course of the wall, is a different juniper called Caly's compact. So it's a little bit lower. It's more of a kind of true green juniper, so it's a nice bright green color. It's going to give you that evergreen color again, right along the top of the wall. It's not one of those like extensively trailing ones, so we don't have it, so it's going to cascade over the wall. That can create other maintenance issues, so we were trying to keep it kind of tidy along the top of the wall. And then back behind that on both sides, we have the Grow Low aromatic sumac, which was actually previously used on the slopes. It was in these areas. It is kind of one of the go-tos for these kind of slope projects. It fills in really nicely, stabilizes soil really nicely. It's deciduous, so during the growing season, it'll be nice and green like this. In the fall, it turns lovely red, bright red with orange, very striking. And then in the winter, you just see the branches. That would need to be cut back annually to kind of keep it more tidy and also help keep some of the weed management for it. So that's kind of overall what plants we chose. And then we kind of broke it down into 3 phases. So we're looking at, it's probably easier to show on this kind of immediate area adjacent to the sides that has the gray owl juniper, the diarvilla, and some of the Caly's compact. That would be phase 1. And then phase 2 would be this side doing the Grollo sumac and the rest of the juniper, and phase 3 is the other side. So we just broke it down to kind of make it easy. It's going to be a lot of plant material because it is a large area, and to try and make it manageable to plant over seasons. We also made recommendations. So we typically recommend in sites where there is invasive weed problems, invasive trees especially, kind of 2-year weed management program to really get those reduced and get those populations under control before we try to establish new plant material and really get the new plant material a chance to thrive and really do well. Since the borough already did some of that last summer with doing the goats and they've already cut back stuff, you're kind of already 1 year in. So we're proposing, depending on how weed management goes over this next season, that the first phase could be planted next spring, so 2025. And then subsequent phases can be planted after that.
In terms of communicating this to the public, that it's an ongoing process, we've prepared some mock-ups of, these are just drafts.
And these are included in the packets.
They're not finalized yet, but we thought that it would be helpful to have some signs in place at vinegar fill at the bottom, at the top, to let people know, let the public know what's happening there, and to provide them education about the process and the time it's going to take to do this. We've also, in talking with Brian about the replanting of it, he said that it was going to be done in-house. So We've reached out to nurseries to obtain quotes to find out what plant materials would cost and kind of sourcing them to help him find places that he can find the plants that we've specified. With that, I guess we want to hear what you have to say, what questions you have, and we can, respond. Good idea. Do you like it? Do you hate it?
Talking with a couple times, I like the idea, and the only way this is gonna work if we stick with the phase, because the cost of, we have that ARP for IRC part, that funding set aside, so I like the plan of having it phased out over 3 years. That will secure the funding that we have. That would give us time to, right now with what we have at the ARP, that would phase 1 and 2, and budget for phase 3 down the road. So with that all in mind, budget-wise, this works with the phases and the initial cost. I was actually surprised with some of the costs. But again, the most important comment I think would be on the standpoint the maintenance, what it's going to take to maintain that. Again, I guess we can all, other than this, probably have the only expertise to say what plant. I don't know a shrub from a plant, so I'm saying this looks great. But again, we're going to have 12 people here saying, we don't like it, we like it. But we have to do what's best for our parks department and for the funding of the borough, the funding that we have. So I just wanted to point that out.
I think, I'm not asking questions. So, looking at the different phases and seeing, phase 2 is strictly over on one side and phase 3 on the other, does that, I'm OCD, I'll admit it. That seems imbalanced. Would you consider thinking of doing like phase 1 being all along the wall and then phase 2 the next step back, or vice versa? It's just my OCD.
I was going to say, there's definitely a lot of different ways we could phase this. Now, the way that we broke it up, especially with phase 1, is trying to get the main impact area done first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The 2 auxiliary areas, we could definitely do, say, all of the junipers in one sitting, and then all of the sumacs in one sitting. There are a lot more sumacs, so that would make phase 3 heavier in costs, and phase 2 would be less in cost. So it wouldn't be quite as balanced.
There's also a concern with weed control. It's easier to control weeds on a hillside that doesn't have anything nearby planted than if you try to plant the bottom but then control weeds up above, or vice versa. And so from that perspective, I think it would behoove us to consider the size. I think if you have that center, these guys are going to fill room. Give it 2 planting seasons.
Well, I learned something.
I know there's going to be a run through the whole plant, but the plan isn't for the other side to be bare dirt and bricks. So there will be some things there depending how.
So an annual ryegrass, so to help with the weed management, we don't want the soil bare because that just invites more weeds to come in and germinate. So as we're phasing through this, all of it will be planted with annual rye. And, as the phases get done, what's nice about annual rye is it's kind of a 1-year plant. So like this spring, they should plant the annual rye after doing some initial cleanup and treatment. And then next spring, when you come in, you can plant the phase 1 areas, touch up and reseed any of the annual rye in the areas that haven't been planted, and continue on each year like that. So in the annual rye, it's a nice bright green grass. So it looks really nice and cheery. So it'll at least give some sort of green cover there. It'll also make it easier for spot treatment, for managing a lot of the invasive weeds, because most of them are kind of woody plants. So then we can use a selective herbicide and not have to do a non-selective herbicide, which is a better application. So it allows for better weed management and helping to reduce those populations as we kind of phase this in.
Excuse me, did you say that you are asking our local businesses for supplies and plants and things versus the larger companies outside the area?
We have reached out to several nurseries. We reached out to a local one as well as some other regional ones. Who you end up supplying it from is really up to you. It's just a matter of them being able to provide the plant material. What's nice is, since this is looking at for next year, they have some time. So if we get a local nursery on board, they can source and grow what is needed once the plan is finalized. So
Are you working with the local
With Justin over at Tully.
yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Our only option, or are there other markups as well?
So this is kind of the option we finally refined it down to. We had some internal discussion and some discussion with some other experts. So we looked at doing a meadow seeding or something like that. But meadows take 5 to 7 years to fully. Meadow would be a bunch of herbaceous plants, mainly grasses, perennials, sometimes some annuals. And you can seed it, which that's nice, but it's not going to do as well with potential invasive problems in the future. It's going to take a lot more maintenance, especially the first few years of establishment, which means we're going to be putting guys on those slopes much more frequently. So it looks great. It's a cool idea, and a lot of people really like it for like slopes and those kind of applications without realizing the kind of time and effort that has to go into really making it successful. So we actually contacted Ernst Seeds, which is one of the largest meadow seed providers in our region, and their horticultural expert even said, I would do shrubs because maintaining on this hillside is going to be so difficult. So that's why we refined down the shrubs. And then from there, we looked at shrub varieties that do really well on slopes, do well in poor soil conditions, because unfortunately the soils are not great, do well without a lot of water, because on slopes, the water just kind of runs off. Now, obviously the plants collect some of the water, but it's not like it's like on flat ground where water can sit there a little bit longer to get absorbed. So even in wet conditions, it's kind of drought for them. So those are all factors that had to go into kind of the plant selection, as well as we wanted to try and give you something that would look nice and easily maintained, require as little maintenance as possible. Now, obviously, during the establishment period, the first few years, it's going to take a little bit more. There's going to be additional watering. There's going to be additional times that you may want to take care of weeds or something on there, or you might have a few plants that die because that happens and might have to be replaced. So the first few years normally of establishment take a little bit more effort. But hopefully once this is established, other than, the annual cutback of the growth of sumac and then every couple of years cutting back to Dyervilla, there shouldn't be too much that you have to do.
What about, and I might be using this word wrong, but the hardscapes, are there any other options? I don't know, like rocks and things like that. Was that? Yeah.
Rock idea too, but
Is that something that works on street fit or?
So the concern with that is you're going to create more impervious area, which means you're going to have more water coming off of that slope, which is already a lot of runoff. So the nice thing about plantings is they're going to help with that. Now, mixing in some boulders or something like that is definitely feasible, and that's something that we could do. I wouldn't do anything too extensive, but, little groupings of boulders here or there. The problem with that, and we discussed this with Ryan, would be actually placing those boulders and securing those boulders because they're very heavy. You want to bury them partially for them to be properly secured, So just think you'd need a crane or some sort of big machine to be placing these rocks on the slope.
But then we don't have to wait.
Yeah. So it'd be an extensive expense. It would also be a lot of effort on on the city side to initially post them. So we did discuss that, and we kind of played with that as an option.
I
But
like I like the rock idea, but responsibility.
yeah, it starts to get a little questionable on that slope.
I guess I was looking for something that maybe says something about Indiana or shrubbery in a certain. Just something that kind of gives a nod to our town. This is beautiful, but this could be in any city, in any borough. So I guess I was looking for some other creative option like that. I don't know if there is. You guys are the wizards. Is there an option?
I mean, park and that sense of place is district right there, and where you're having your functions and your gathering. And this is just the continuation of the region of that park. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think you want to put statues or things like that.
We think of it more as like this lovely background that's gonna give some of these colors and some of these interests to that kind of main axis that you have right there, where other things are going. It's beautiful. Now we did use some native plants. The Dyer Villa is a hybrid of natives. The juniper gray owl is a native species, and the sumac is a native species. So that's something that we considered with this. For one, natives do really well in these kind of conditions because they thrive in these conditions already. But I mean, that could be kind of the nod to the area. Yeah. So.
There was going to be like red foliage. I think like the IB homecoming parade, you could post on our park and you see the bright red foliage. Yeah.
Like a shade tree, because you guys, plants with trees. I mean, what's your take on this?
Definitely not the expert on the plants, but I've been involved with shade tree for a long time. I think this is great, just to even have plans with Vinegar Hill. I walk below Vinegar Hill, that area very often. It was lovely having the goats there last summer. But I think this is beautiful, and I know it was just sort of mentioned as I was sitting here too. Maybe there'd be a way to bring in our community in another way, not just actual landscaping, but maybe an opportunity for a mural or something similar in that area to really kind of tie it in with our town. But I think this plan looks beautiful.
I have a variety of questions. So I apologize in advance. I own a landscaping company. My questions are probably going to be, make everyone else go flat. Is there any blight that's coming for area, even if it's several states away for any of these places? Somebody mentioned hip blight, which I'm not familiar with, but for example, the voxels have a lovely new fungus that's attacking them. You ask Penn State about it, they say we can spray it with this fungicide, but we don't think it'll do anything. Oh, super duper, right? So my question is, ash trees gone, blue spruce will be gone 5 years, max, maybe 10. I mean, arborvitaes are getting hit with some mites. Boxwoods are starting to die all over the place. So these things happen, right? And so my question is, if Ryan and his team has been putting hours on a stone-vacant hill, planting all these bushes, and then in 3 years, whatever's in Georgia today gets here, that's going to stop. Excuse my language.
Yep.
So if you guys have access to the ability to catch those sorts of things, see, I don't know what I'm a landscaper, installer, not a designer, not an architect. You know, so you folks have access to all sorts of databases, forums, information sharing sites. And again, I don't know if it's like, but 3 years after we installed 7,000 juniper,
So
that would be a bad day.
tip blight typically only happens on young junipers.
All of the,
Yes. Young junipers that are planted too closely together. These are going to be small plants. There's going to be a decent amount of space between them. So there's going to be good air circulation. Also, the site is not wet. So it's a fungal, there's 3 different funguses that can cause tip blight. So the likelihood of it occurring is very slim. Also, both of these varieties of juniper are deemed pretty disease resistant. Now, I always say that like with a caveat because things always change, things are always evolving, so you never know in the future. But both of these have proved successful year after year on sites across the state that we have worked on, especially the gray owl. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, no, right.
Yeah.
So the issue with that is the botanic gardens have researchers that can evaluate that. So we haven't done that. We'll go back and we'll reach out to them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for future problems,
yeah.
we would need to do
That's-
additional research,
right.
but we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
There are resources available.
So that's,
And we would hate to see that happen.
so, you know, there's over 100 years of professional expertise that has had input on this plan. We have myself, 2 other very seasoned landscape architects in our office, and then we have a long-term a landscape architect who's retired, who did design work for Missouri Botanic Garden, and we've talked to her about this and reviewed this in the plant selection. So we feel pretty comfortable with it, but we'll go back and we'll check to see if there's any lights that are working its way
Especially
towards
since you said some of those southern states, as we have kind of the warming climate and things are adjusting, some of that stuff is moving north, and I think it's valuable. There are great resources in the South that are doing case studies in North Carolina and in Georgia, and I use them as resources all the time, so I will happily take a look at those and confirm.
Now, that said, there may be nothing that we identified today.
And in 3 years, something still shows up, unfortunately.
very specific. Levels of biodegraded leaf material. My question is that for a specific reason, or is that for a specific reason? That was articulated very clearly. Not completely biodegraded, but slightly biodegraded. And still some intact leaves left.
So that was one of our compost mixtures that we have found is very tried and successful, especially with more complex plantings. It compared to some other compost mixtures will break down faster, so those nutrients will be more readily available to the plants sooner. So that's why it's so specific. We use that a lot with plantings in very difficult soil conditions that are going to need those nutrients faster, as well as like plantings for like perennials or things that, you know, grow and mature a lot faster. So they're going to need those nutrients sooner than say a tree, which is going to need nutrients for a longer term. We use the leaf compost because it tends to have, and we get very specific because we don't want problems with weed seed getting in and other contaminants. And we don't want it fully biodegraded because at that point the nutrients have already left it and there's not going to be any value in it. So that's why we get very specific on that. So that is one of our tried and true compost mixtures. And we specified that one here because of the soil conditions on the slope. So it's a combination of both. There's not irrigation on it. And because of the slope, water will not stay on it. So water will,
Okay. Yeah.
the,
Rockland.
yeah, there's a lot of rocks and clay. Yeah.
You're gonna put, I don't know the total, I didn't see a total for plants, but let's just take 300 plants a minute. One, how do you plan on watering them all? Two, how do you plan on keeping where their root ball is not a lovely haven of root rot, it's created a clay bowl instead of plant?
So we discussed with Ryan that the first couple of years, there's gonna have to be something developed to be able to water.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
yes,
It's
yes, yes. So some sort of watering solution, whether it's a truck, there's a lot of different ways you can handle that. They will require watering for the first few years of establishment. Now, after that, unless it's an extended period of drought, all of these plants should be able to handle these soil conditions, these drought conditions, all of that. So it's really just during that establishment period, which we detailed in kind of a mock-up maintenance guide that we have given Ryan. And as for kind of creating that bowl, there's a little bit of problem with the soil. There's only so much we can do. If we start to disturb it, we're going to undermine the soil and cause more problems, and there's likely going to be soil washing off and other things. So we don't want to do a bunch of additives, which is why we just have the leaf compost as kind of an additive. Now, the nice thing about being able to do the cover crop is that is going to help improve some of the soil conditions and some of the water holding capacity of the slope. So between that and, kind of some of our planting guides, which I don't think I brought our planting details, really we're trying to set it up for the most success. Now,
yeah, you can't plant for it.
Yeah. Now, if there's a giant pocket of really dense clay, we're going to have problems. Or if there's, a shelf of shale, we're going to have problems. And we don't know until we start digging.
Awesome. I can either email you any other questions I specifically have. Let's be fun and keep going. Yeah. Yeah. So, I think everybody. Nicole, specific question.
Yeah.
For their sake.
And then still kind of in the early stages, so we can still make adjustments and amend things or, make any changes. We're still waiting, we want your feedback and your thoughts on this, so.
We did talk earlier too in one of our meetings about, have an outraged public, but again, you can have people come in like me and be like, plant a tree up there. They'll be like, can't plant a tree up there. Again, that's all.
Something Luke and I talked about earlier today actually is with the annual rye. Is there another option that's not so annual for budget reasons? I mean, because the hydro seeding, you're looking at 3 years in a row.
The problem is if you don't go with an annual, then is that you'll continue to battle it after the plants are planted.
So the problem, if we do something that's not annual, is you will have to, if you want to establish the plants, you'll have to go through probably applying herbicides to kill it.
Yeah.
And you still might have, because of seed sources in the soil, you still might have a problem with it.
Keep growing. Yeah.
So, I mean, there are options. There definitely are options.
Yeah.
There's perennial rye, which is used as a cover, as well as some oak crops and everything. We've looked at a few different ones, and we did bounce back and forth with ideas, Kara in our office as well as myself. And really, as we went over it, we think the annual rye is going to be your most successful without causing future problems.
Yeah.
Or without needing a lot of herbicide applications, which you're still going to have to do herbicide applications for the invasive control, but we're trying to keep that very concentrated and selective. This would be broadcast.
Yeah.
That might cause more community uproar than
So our option B, let the weeds grow and bring the goats back every year.
They're popular everywhere.
Yes.
And,
Well, again, any other questions I have, I'll funnel through Ryan, or as the not keep people here longer than I did. But, yeah, sorry. I did. Yeah. Anything now?
And I'll be in touch, obviously.
and please take the time to look at these proposed signs, because we want to make sure we get it right. We don't want to put signs out and then something happens.
So the
Yes.
first 3 pages are the signs, and then the last page is just a copy of the planting plan. So that wouldn't be included on the sign. So those first 3 pages, please give us feedback. We're trying to come up with the best way to communicate. And obviously, if changes to the design happen, that would change in here, but the language and what's getting represented, we want to make sure we're trying to communicate to the community what's happening so that they have a good understanding.
It's good to know that.
Yeah.
I think we get more closer to the one.
Yeah, some of
So
the
it's
things
out there in different ways.
some of the things Brian and the team would be doing, no matter what ended up after, right? You're gonna use great herbicides, et cetera. Those things have flat.
Yes.
Made final, like, they're
Yeah, I
totally
think-
polished yet.
What they have, Brian realizes in what he has to be doing in 2023 to prepare for whatever design.
And we've been trying to prepare a nice detailed plan for Ryan of step by step. Here's what you have to do prior to planting. Here's what you need to do for installation, and here's what we're expecting for maintenance. To really just try and ease that process along specifically for this site.
Anyone? Any- Okay, moving on. One last thing I wanted to add. Didn't add it to our agenda. I just did. Simply is, we like to talk about good things that happen in the community and they have something to win. I personally have one that was shared to me by several people, and that is the fact that moving isn't necessarily a crisis, but it's probably pretty darn close. And although that not everyone always gets along in every moment, I have heard nothing but praise about all of the staff members and all of the work that they've done. Emptying this building, outside on routines from street crew to parks to the administrative staff, everybody doing, and nobody ran anyone over with a skid loader. Nobody quit. I mean, it was stressful, and you guys all rocked it, all the staff that's sitting here, plus all the staff. That's the good thing that I wanted to throw out there. You guys lived through, hopefully, the hard part of this bill, and hopefully move back to be exciting and not stressful. So I just wanted to tip my hat to all the different staff that I've heard nothing but positive feedback from a multitude of people. So that's the good thing I had. I'm gonna have something else. Come on.
St. Patty's parade and stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
It was very, very nice.
Yeah, it's good having you back. So hopefully next year. Yeah, longer and robust. I'm back. We're ready for now. All right. Stop. June half. So I think that's your opinion. So,
Yep, you can take as many as you want.